Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports. We're talking real sports talk worldwide on Charlton and Big C Sports every Monday through Friday at 5 o'clock p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And Big C, I know everybody's hyped in Chicago about the NFL draft coming up. And I know we like to make some Hollywood with our sports business. And I know you're very fond of people from Hollywood, Big C. And today's segment is sponsored by Bud Light because it tastes good and also helps you lose weight from what I understand, Big C. But any thoughts on some Hollywood actors that come to mind as we talk about the NFL draft, Big C?
Well, it's draft day, Charlton, and if you remember, there was a movie done with Kevin Costner.
Yeah.
A couple of years ago about the NFL draft, about all that went into it, and we've talked about Kevin a couple times.
Yeah.
But that just shows the range and diversity of Kevin, that he does so many things that mirror real life, and, he was showing how the draft process works, which is what everybody's going to get a chance to see again today on ESPN, Charlton.
Yeah.
And, realistically, Charlton, the draft is a guessing game.
Yeah.
That's what it is. It's just like movies, there's a lot of fiction involved, there's portrayals involved.
Yeah.
But Kevin's done a wonderful job with that over the years. I mean, you can spend an entire show talking about Kevin Costner and his sports movies, his action movies, just his movies in general. But, when you look at the draft today, there's his action movies and drama. You get all that thrown into one day, Charlton.
Yeah.
That, the worst feeling guy today is going to be the guy sitting in the green room and don't get his name called.
Oh, my God.
And you got the camera peering into his eyes all the time, and, you don't know whether you want to throw up or go to sleep.
Well, that's like the guy at the club when it's 1:59 p.m. or a.m. and he still doesn't have anyone to dance with. But I can understand that feeling. It's a great time of year, especially for the NFL, the best sports league in the United States and one of the most popular in the world, Big C. So as we get into just talking about the teams that are picked, the Rams are actually picking first, and just want to get your thoughts. Nobody knows until the picks happen, but they're talking about Jared Goff, quarterback out of Cal, and they think that he's a shoo-in to stay on the West Coast and be with the Rams, Big C. Your thoughts on that?
Well, shooting is probably the best thing. He's going to need a horseshoe to survive in the NFL. So if you talk about shooting. This is the same young man who never beat a top 25 team during his college career.
No.
Now, I think everybody in the NFL is rated above a top 25 team in college football, Charlton, if you want to look at it from that perspective. But you never beat a top 25 team in your entire college career. Matter of fact, you were 0 for 25 against top 25 teams. So when you talk about NFL ready and productivity, he had one game in a conference game last year against the University of Utah.
Yeah.
Where he threw for 5 interceptions, Charlton. 5 against Utah. Now, they weren't the best team in the Pac-12. They were a good team. They played the bowl game.
Yeah.
But he got the praise in the bowl game where he played against Air Force.
Yeah.
A lot of undersized, under-athletic football players, basically like playing a Division III team, Charlton.
Yeah, well, I hope
that Carson Wentz would have played for.
And I hope that he has success because this is a great opportunity for all the college kids. But he was 14-26. That was his career record at Cal. And I don't know how they think that's going to turn it around in the NFL. Also, number 2 team, Big C, and this segment is sponsored by Beneath His Wings Foundation. And that's support or donate at bhwf.org. Contact Cynthia Evans at CYNN Entertainment. She's the best promoter in Northern California. Send us a tweet and tell her Charlton and Big C sent you. Big C, when we look at the Philadelphia Eagles, they have the number 2 pick, and we'll go down the line and try to get them all in before the end of the show. They're thinking Carson Wentz, quarterback, North Dakota State. What they like about him is he scored a stellar 40 on his Wonderlic intelligence test. And Stanford quarterback Kevin Hogan scored 38. Your thoughts on that, Big C?
Well, Charlton, everybody has been sold on Carson Wentz, who hasn't played a game since, I believe, around December. But he has risen in the draft over 20 positions, as far as being evaluated by these teams. I don't even know if the teams, it's the so-called experts.
Yeah, the media people.
But, when you got a guy, Charlton, who only passes for 1,600 yards as a senior in college and really only started 20 games.
Yeah.
20 games as a college football player. He was a sparse starter when he was in high school. And he spent 5 years in college, Charlton, and only 20 starts. So that's not a lot of productivity. I don't see a lot of tape. I don't see a lot of repetition when it comes to that. I think the Eagles are sold on the fact that they hired Peterson as their head coach, a former quarterback. They hired a former quarterback, Frank Reich, as the offensive coordinator. And between these two, they're feeling that they can take him and mold them into an NFL starter.
Yeah.
We've seen over the decades, coming out of the best of programs in college football, that it's not that easy to turn a quarterback around. And you look at Jeff Goff. Cal, in its history, has had 15 quarterbacks drafted. 15. Yeah. Of those 15, Charlton, only 2 have gone to the Super Bowl. And those 2 that have gone to the Super Bowl, Charlton, did not start until their 4th and 5th year in pro football. Aaron Rodgers backed up Brett Favre for 3 years, okay?
Yeah. Well,
3 years. So he had great tutelage. And so I don't care what kind of coach you got, you weren't getting better than Brett Favre.
Well, when you think
then you had Joe Kapp.
Yeah.
Joe Kapp spent 4 years in Canada, won a championship up there like Warren Moon prior to coming back to the NFL, starting for the Minnesota Vikings in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and when you think about playing in Super Bowls, this segment is also sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealer, home of the all-new Escalade, the standard of the world. You can only get it new there, and when you go down and test drive it, tell them that Charlton and Big C sent you. Now, Big C, I know that you're big on offensive line. We have an offensive tackle. The Chargers have the 3rd pick, Laramie Tunzel. He's an offensive tackle out of Mississippi, and the word on him is he may be the best offensive tackle in the draft, but his insurance is too that he played in the SEC. What do you think about him as an offensive tackle for the Chargers, Big C, out of Mississippi?
He played in a run-dominant, power-dominant conference, Charlton. That's what the SEC is known for.
Yeah.
Smash-mouth football. He reminds me so much of a player that just retired from the New York Jets, the Brickenshaw Ferguson out of the University of Virginia, who spent a decade anchoring the New York Jets offensive line, and he's going to be sorely missed by the Jets. They got to replace him in the draft. But when you look at Laramie Tunsil, he's one of those guys that's going to be there for 10 to 12 years.
Yeah.
He's not a speculation player like a quarterback, Charlton, one of these guys that they're talking about franchise players.
Yeah.
Franchise quarterbacks come every 10 years, really, Charlton. Yeah. When you look at the guys, you can go now and you take the top highest paid quarterbacks in the NFL.
Yeah.
12 of them are busts, but they make over $100 million.
That's
but they've never been to the Super Bowl. So is that a franchise player that I can't get you past the first round of the playoffs, or I can't get you through the playoffs? You're better off with somebody like a Tony Romo, who's not drafted, even though he's only won 2 playoff games in his career.
Yeah.
But he's a safer investment.
Yeah. And speaking of investments, Big C, the Dallas Cowboys under Jerry Jones, they have the number 4 pick, and they're looking at All-American defensive end Joey Bosa out of Ohio State. You know, Bosa played in a great conference up in the Big Ten and played on a national championship team. And he also had the chance to play against a lot of teams that run the ball. What do you think of the Cowboys taking Joey Bosa? I know his father also played for the Miami Dolphins back in the day, Big C.
Well, no, he's been a tremendous college player, Charlton, but people let it go under the radar. And we play this black and white thing a lot. At least I do. You don't do it. I do it. Joey Bosa got suspended in college.
Yeah.
But his suspension is nowhere near Namiki's suspension from Mississippi.
Right.
What's the difference? He didn't get any bad publicity, but Namichi did.
Yeah.
But the thing about Bosa, he hasn't played against NFL offensive tackles, okay?
Mm-hmm.
He hasn't played against the guys with the long arms consistently week in and week out, which is going to be his downfall in the NFL. He's been a tremendous college player, Charlton. But on the NFL level, those offensive tackles will eat him up, Charlton. He will just be a middle-of-the-road player.
Well, I know the Big Ten has a lot of dominant players, and they run heavy, so we'll have to see how that comes, Big C. Now, also, you look at Jacksonville, the number 5th pick. They have Jalen Ramsey, cornerback out of Florida State. Now, Jacksonville, Tampa Bay, and Tennessee, they composed a Bermuda Triangle in the NFL. So what do you think of the cornerback out of Florida State, played on the ACC, where they actually faced a lot of good quarterbacks, Big C?
Well, Ramsey, Charlton, is one of the top 3 players in the draft. Now, realistically, those quarterbacks are just media darlings. They're not in the top 20 players in the first round. They're just media darlings, and so people have to hype them up. Why? Because of their appearance, Charlton.
Yeah.
But Jalen Ramsey on paper, find 2 players that rank higher than him on paper. Productivity, it's not there. Jalen Ramsey's off the charts.
Yeah.
He's going to be an all-pro secondary player for whoever takes him for the next decade. He's going to play in the NFL a long time where one of those quarterbacks will be watching him from the sideline.
Well, you also, when I look at this too, Big C, it is amazing how we look at some of the people that we have here. Ronnie Staley, Staley, offensive tackle out of Notre Dame, 10.5-inch hands are bigger than other tackles. And
Charlton, he has the largest hands in the draft. He has the second largest hands in the history of the modern draft that's been measured. And Staley and Tunsil, either one of those guys are going to be a cornerstone for an offensive line for the next decade. Whoever gets them, both of those guys will go in the top 10. And both of those guys will play at least 10 years as a starter. You can pencil them in from day one, Charlton. That, you know how good Notre Dame's offensive line was. You look how many quarterbacks Notre Dame played last year.
Yeah.
And he protected all of them, Charlton. There was never a gap in their productivity. So, you know, and you look at Mississippi, what they did, they even beat Alabama last year, Charlton.
Yeah.
You're looking at two quality offensive linemen that, if you want to build a franchise, we talked about the Rams building a franchise. You got Todd Gurley, who can run the ball for the next 8 to 10 years.
Yeah.
That's where you go. Don't waste the draft pick on a quarterback, Charlton.
And thinking of quarterbacks, we've heard a lot of talk. The 49ers, they actually have the number 7 pick. They're looking at DeForest Buckner, defensive end out of Oregon. And he played with Eric Armstead. He would love to have the 49ers with 2 6'7" defensive ends. What are your thoughts on him helping shore up the 49ers defense, Big C?
Well, you know, that's what the 49ers need. You know, they lost Aldon Smith. They need another pass rusher, Charlton. You know, you can look down at Baylor. They have a kid that's about 6'8", who's a great pass rusher, as well as the kid from Oregon. But, you know, they're going to need a guy with a little more speed coming off the edge. And that's what Aldon Smith brought. You know, he was a reincarnation of Charles Haley.
Yeah.
You remember the great Charles Haley out of James Madison on those Super Bowl teams at the 49ers, and that's what they need. They got to build up the defense. When they went to the Super Bowl and to the NFC Championship, Charlton, they were lights out. They were a bunch of beasts. Crazy dogs, as Lawrence Taylor was saying on that side of the football.
I understand. We look at the Cleveland Browns, and we have Jake Conklin, offensive line out of Michigan State.
And my sympathies, Charlton, to the city of Cleveland.
I understand.
They have to go through this draft again.
Okay, I understand. But Jake Conklin, offensive lineman, Michigan State, he's someone that everybody likes, and he's going to be great for the offensive line. What are your thoughts on him, Big C?
Well, Charlton, he's just a cookie cutter of what Cleveland has had in the past with offensive linemen, okay? They've drafted these big, lumbering guys. They don't have any athleticism on their offensive line. That's the problem in Cleveland, and that's where all their problems start. You got to get some mobility. When you look at the offensive lines in that division, okay, Cleveland is the only offensive line in that central division without any African-American offensive linemen, Charlton.
Yeah.
So when you talk about building a running game, you have to have guys who can pull, Charlton. Cleveland Brown had Jim Brown years ago. Greatest running back of all time.
Amazing player.
They made a trade with the Chicago Bears for an offensive guard named Davis, African American, because they needed a lineman who could pull and run with Jim Brown.
Yeah.
And if you look at the Cleveland Browns offensive line over the past decade, they haven't had any African American running backs that can be productive because they haven't had any African American guards that can pull in front of them that can run with them.
Well, when you think about building your team from the draft, we have number 9 pick, Big C, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They're looking at Vernon Hargreaves, cornerback out of Florida, and he's a very talented player, cornerback down at Florida. They have a lot of speed down in the great state of Florida, and you know they have a great quarterback last year with Jameis Winston. What do you think of him being able to help out with the defensive side of the ball for the Buccaneers, Big C, Vernon Hargreaves out of Florida?
You know, it's nice to bring in defensive backs, Charlton. We've talked about Ramsey already and Hargreaves. This is 2 players out of the state of Florida that can step in and be productive in the NFL.
Yeah.
Tampa had some points they need to sort. We know they got big receivers. They got the young quarterback in Winston. They got Martin back in the backfield, the running game. They had 1,400 yards rushing last year. They have to shore up that secondary. Get Winston back on the field a few more extra snaps and have a chance to win a few more games.
And that's very important, too, because you talk about getting some surrounding support for the young man. Another 10, the 10th team picking the New York Giants, and I like this choice. They're looking at Miles Jack, linebacker out of UCLA. Now, his knee...
Charlton, if he hadn't been hurt 2 years ago, he would be the number 1 draft pick. You talk about an athlete, a talent. Jack played running back, played linebacker, in the same games.
Yeah.
Not during his career, during the same games. He'd go out, come right back in. All he was off the field for was the punt return. That was it.
He reminds me of Deion Sanders, only bigger and stronger at linebacker. I really like him. I don't think his knee's going to be an issue. Even for guys that have knee issues, they tear ACLs. They come back in about a year better than ever because of the medical technology. So I really like Miles Jack. And as we get into the number 11 pick, the Chicago Bears, this segment is also sponsored by your Northern California BMW dealer, home of the ultimate driving machine. When you go down and test drive them, tell them that Charlton and Big C sent you. Now we're looking at Shaq Lawson, defensive end outside linebacker from Clemson. And they played Alabama last year in the national championship game. And he's a stud defensive end outside linebacker. What do you think of him helping the Bears on defense, Big C?
I think he's the best defensive end in the entire draft, Charlton. We talked about the kids from Oregon, Baylor, Bosa. Yeah. Mm-hmm. None of these guys will compare to Shaq Lawson on the field as far as productivity and how athletic he is.
Yeah.
This guy will be a game changer. Now, the Bears need more than a defensive end. This is the team that should be talking about drafting a quarterback.
Yeah.
And, Jay Cutler's not going to get it done. But Shaq Lawson, the Bears a few years ago had Allen.
Yeah.
Jared Allen. Great defensive end. Shaq Lawson will pick up where Allen fell off with the Bears, Charlton.
Number 12 pick, Big C, the Saints. Sheldon Rankins, defensive line out of Louisville. Now, if he selected this early, then Rankins really ought to be able to help them out on the defensive line. What do you think of Sheldon Rankins out of Louisville? Didn't play the best competition, but still a very high draft pick, number 12 for the Saints.
Well, has a real high motor, Charlton. He plays inside, and that's what you need as a run stopper. When you think about the Saints defense, one of the poorest run defenses in the NFL last year. The Saints need a lot. They lost Marcus Colston. Drew Brees is back, but they're going to have to start building. You got to stop people first. Drew Brees can't keep throwing the ball 50 times a game, so you're going to have to keep some people off the field and out of the end zone.
Well, the number 13 team, the Miami Dolphins, Ezekiel Elliott, running back out of Ohio State. In the last 15 minutes of the program, Big C, he runs a 4.28 40. What do you think of him? He's an do-it-all kind of player.
Yeah, but I think that's a bad fit for Miami, Charlton. Ezekiel Elliott goes to Miami and his career goes in the tank, Charlton. He needs to be in another organization. Now, you remember they just signed Anderson away from the Denver Broncos after the Super Bowl win. So, what's going to be the purpose of signing a running back in the first round, drafting one in the first round? You just signed one to a multi-million-dollar contract. Yeah. I think the Dolphins' needs are much greater than Elliott. Elliott, it's going to be great to see him drafted in the first round, but I don't see that as a good fit with the Miami Dolphins, Charlton.
What do you think of well, I want to call them the Oakland Raiders, but they're talking about going to Las Vegas for some reason. But the Raiders,
they're going to roll the dice, is what you're saying?
They're talking about rolling the dice to get someone to pay for a new stadium. But Reggie Ragland, linebacker out of the SEC at Alabama. So you look at Reggie McKenzie, he's looking at how to build his team. He stays in the SEC, the good old boys down in Alabama. What do you think of Reggie Ragland, linebacker at Alabama, Big C?
Well, when you look at the Raiders, they haven't had a lot of success drafting players out of the SEC. They had the receiver Cooper, but you remember a couple of years ago they drafted Ronaldo McClain, linebacker out of Alabama, who's with the Dallas Cowboys now and actually abruptly retired from the NFL. Ragland's an excellent linebacker. What do you play him? Do you play him inside? Do you play him outside? He's a tweener.
Yeah.
So, they're going to have to find a fit for him. Now, if you remember with Khalil Mack a couple of years, they had him inside, they had him outside. When they finally left him outside, he's developed into one of the finest defensive players in the NFL, Charlton.
Well, that's incredible, too. Obviously a very good player. The Tennessee Titans at number 15, looking at Taylor Decker, offensive tackle out of Ohio State. And good news for Tennessee, they led the league in offense. When you look at last year, in the category last year, the bad news is the quarterback was sacked 54 times. That's not good. They're trying to shore up the offensive line this year.
Well, they've made two positive moves now. They made the trade with Philadelphia in the offseason, Charlton, brought in DeMarco Murray.
Yeah.
Who is an excellent running back that can fit the scheme that they have. Now, they bring in the offensive tackle out of Ohio State. That's what we talk about. When you have a young quarterback, you want to protect him, all right? And we talked about that's what the Rams should be looking at doing. Tennessee has it right.
Yeah.
They drafted Mariota last year, number 2 pick overall. It was only the second time in history that quarterbacks went 1 and 2 with Mariota and Winston.
Yeah.
Now they want to make sure that they protect their future investment in Mariota. You bring in this offensive tackle, protect his backside. You got Murray, who can run the ball as well as block. Tennessee is going to make the right move by drafting an offensive tackle to help out their quarterback, Charlton.
When you think about helping out the quarterback, we have the Detroit Lions, number 16, Kevin Dodd, defensive end out of Clemson. Now, he's accused of being a one-hit wonder, but he had 62 hits last year, 24 behind the line of scrimmage. He can get penetration in the backfield, Big C.
Well, the Lions need a little more on the offense. They lost Calvin Johnson. I thought they might want to look at wide receiver. You know, it's going to be hard to replace him. I think that, so they'll probably be looking in the second round to draft a receiver. But, you know, defensive line, if you get a great defensive lineman, it's hard to pass on them, Charlton. Pass rushes are a premium all the time.
Definitely true.
All the time. You got to be able to put pressure on the opposing quarterback.
Yeah.
Now, if Dodson pans out, he's not just a one-year wonder. Look at the coup that Dabo Swinney had at Clemson last year, runner-up in the national championship game, have both of his defensive ends going in the first round.
Speaking of first round, Atlanta Falcons number 17 pick, Darren Lee, linebacker, Ohio State. He would be the 5th Buckeyes taken in the first round. Just think about what he does for their linebacking core down in Atlanta, Big C.
Well, you know, the Falcons last year, Charlton, gave up about 5 yards per rush, so they were very porous on the defensive side of the ball. They're hoping to get Sean Weatherspoon back in number 1 draft pick a couple of years ago off of a knee injury.
Yeah.
And, you know, Dan Quinn is hoping to shore up his defense like what he had when he was the defensive coordinator in Seattle.
Yeah.
I don't know if he can replicate that in Seattle, in Atlanta, but they also need another wide receiver in Atlanta. They let Rowdy White go. They only have Julio Jones. The tight ends haven't stepped up since Gonzalez's retirement.
Yeah.
So, you know, drafting a defensive end is solid, but there's a lot of things that's going to be needed in Atlanta.
Speaking of needs, number 18 pick, the Indianapolis Colts. They're looking at Ryan Kelly, a center out of Alabama. Andrew Luck was hit so many times in recent years. They really need to protect him more, Big C. What do you think of Ryan Kelly, the center out of Alabama?
Well, did he even play last year? I thought it was Matt Hasselbeck's team. And that's a solid move. If you look at Indianapolis, Charlton, over the past several years, that has been the weak spot of their team, the offensive line. They've made investments around that. Jeff Saturday anchored that team for like a decade, 12 years, with the great Peyton Manning when he was playing quarterback.
Yeah.
But since that tandem has been gone, that's been a weakness. Andrew Luck has been hit a lot. You got a lot of money that you're going to invest in Andrew Luck. The running game has not been solid in Indianapolis, and that comes from not having a quality offensive line, Charlton. So that's a solid pick for the Colts.
Well, number 19, you look at, for the Buffalo Bills, Robert Nkemdiche, defensive line, Mississippi, and you know he can help Rex Ryan in that defense up in the great state of New York. What do you think about the Bills getting Robert Nkemdiche, Big C?
Nkemdiche is the best defensive lineman in the draft, Charlton. He's one of the top 5 talents in the draft, period. So all these talking heads who have been talking about his off-the-field problems, they don't mention, like I said, Joey Bosa's off-the-field problems, his suspension at Ohio State.
Yeah.
There's a color barrier there.
Yeah.
But Nkemdiche, if you don't draft him, he's going to come back and haunt you for the next 10 years. All the teams who passed him over, just like Tom Brady, okay, Charlton?
Yeah.
Look at all the teams who passed him over. Look at all the teams who passed over Joe Montana.
Yeah.
Look how they both came back and haunted teams for years who had an opportunity to pick them. Nkemdiche, a talent like that only comes along every now and then.
Yeah, they really high
He's the best defensive lineman in the last 5 years to come into the NFL, Charlton.
Well, you look at the number 20 pick, Noah Spence, defensive end out of Eastern Kentucky, going to the New York Jets. I know Eastern Kentucky is not a national power, but they really like his explosiveness at defensive end, Noah Spence, Eastern Kentucky, Big C.
Well, he's a player that came from the SEC originally, Charlton. He was suspended, lost his scholarship, went down to a lower division to play football immediately.
Yeah.
So that's why he's getting all this hype. He was an SEC player at Auburn prior to being suspended going to Eastern Kentucky. He's another version of a Khalil Mack, Charlton. That's what you're looking for in him. You'll see a smaller Khalil Mack, but this guy is ready to play. Don't let Eastern Kentucky fool you because he's a big-time college football player.
Well, another big-time player, Washington has the number 21 pick, and they're looking at Jaron Reed, defensive line out of Alabama at 307 pounds. He's very stout, can be really big on their run game, Big C.
Well, they just signed Norman away from Carolina, okay?
Yeah.
So you're going to have to be able to get some pressure on the quarterback. They have the kid from Nebraska, and his name eludes me right now, but I know he's number 94. He's been there about 3 years.
Oh, yeah, great player.
So, yeah, but, you know, this is where they need to shore up. They need some linebacker help, and they need another good defensive lineman. Like we said, if you can put pressure on the passer, you can help out your defensive backs. I mean, defensive backs have a long stride and a short memory. Because when you get burnt, you got to line up again.
You have to do it fast. That's true, Big C.
But you need some help from your big guys with their hands in the dirt to slow down that quarterback getting rid of the ball.
In the last 10 minutes, this segment is also sponsored by your Northern California Ford dealer, home of the all-new F-150. They build it Ford tough. When you go down and test drive it, tell them that Charlton and Big C sent you. Big C, the Texans, Corey Coleman, wide receiver out of Baylor, they're a type of team that was really fast at moving the ball. And what do you think of them helping the Texans? You know, they have Brock Osweiler down there throwing the ball for them down in the great state of Texas, Big C.
Well, Corey Coleman can make an instant impact, Charlton. Last year he had 22 touchdown receptions on the college level. And now Baylor playing in the Big 12, they play against some good competition every week.
Definitely.
But you know the guy was going to get the football. That's the thing. When you got a receiver that you know the quarterback is going to throw to him, and you think about it, Charlton, Baylor used 3 different quarterbacks last year.
Yeah.
3 different starting quarterbacks through injury. And so when you look at the productivity that Coleman still had using 3 different throwers, that is an awesome athlete. So I feel that he will be an impact receiver. Now, they had Andre Johnson for years in Houston. He can step right in and pick up the role that Andre Johnson vacated a couple of years ago.
Yeah, that'll be good for them. Also, the Vikings, number 23 pick, Josh Dodson, wide receiver out of TCU. He's a fluid athlete but needs more body mass. What do you think of him helping the Vikings passing game, Big C?
Well, Charlton, he reminds me of Keenan Allen in San Diego, who came out of Cal a couple of years ago. But when you look at Patterson out of Tennessee, a third-year wide receiver, you got Rudolph, the tight end out of Notre Dame, in his 4th year.
Yeah.
And you bring in Dodson, and you team him with Teddy Bridgewater and Adrian Peterson.
Yeah.
The Vikings made the playoffs last year, Charlton. That's going to be a very, very dangerous offense. It's going to remind people of when they had Randy Moss, Chris Carter, and Robert Smith and Randall Cunningham.
Well, when you think of the number 24 pick, the Bengals, they're looking at Laquan Treadwell, wide receiver out of Mississippi. He's a burner, has good hands. He thinks they'll add to Andy Dalton's passing for Big C.
Well, you match him up with A.J. Green out of Georgia, who's been there for several years. I mean, you're looking at these SEC receivers. Now, they lost the other receiver they had to Atlanta through free agency, but Treadwell is one of those game speed receivers, Charlton, who will come out there, he'll make a difference. He reminds me so much of a Marcus Colston, who played in New Orleans for a decade. This is a guy, he doesn't look fast like a Jerry Rice, but when you realize it, you're trying to read the name on the bottom of his cleats because you're chasing him, and you know his last name because that's all you see.
When you think of fast, you think of the Steelers, number 25th pick. They're looking at Eli Apple, cornerback out of Ohio State. Apple's coming out with a popular new product in Pittsburgh, the iPick. What do you think of him adding to their passing game for Big Ben Roethlisberger, Big C?
Well, you know, you look at Apple now. This is a young man that during the draft combine, that some people asked him some derogatory questions. A couple of scouts, matter of fact, from Atlanta.
Yeah.
Yeah, a scout asked him some derogatory questions.
Yeah.
But, he's a tremendous athlete. And when you look at what Urban Meyer has done at Ohio State, Charlton, I mean, he's just loaded with athletes.
Yeah.
And the NFL, it's a talent pool for them to go into Ohio State. You got quality coach, young men, big talent. You look at the winning record where they've lost 2 games in 3 years at Ohio State.
Yeah.
1 game, really. So, just a great organization, great young men, great talent. All will be impact players in the NFL, Charlton.
When you think about number 26 pick, the Seattle Seahawks, they're looking at a big guy named Jermaine Edifi, offensive tackle out of Texas, big on the run and pass blocking. What do you think of him helping out in the passing game for Seattle, Big C?
Well, that's what they need. They got a new running back in Seattle this year. Lynch is retired. You want to get Wilson just a little more blocking support up front. He really developed in the last 6 games last year, Charlton, as a true leader, a true general, throwing the football up and down the field, setting NFL records.
Yeah.
You add another offensive lineman, and this is what we talked about with the first 2 teams drafting quarterbacks.
Yeah.
You need offensive linemen. So what do the teams that have winning records in the NFL know that the teams with losing records don't know, Charlton?
That's
Protect
true.
your quarterback.
Speaking of quarterbacks,
protect your running back.
Speaking of quarterbacks,
get that
Big
offensive
C.
lineman in place. This is why they win, and the losers are always picking in the top 5, Charlton.
Exactly. In about the last 4 minutes, we have the Green Bay Packers picking number 27, Andrew Billings. He's a nose tackle out of Baylor, stocky and thick, hard to run the ball against. What do you think of Andrew Billings, nose tackle out of Baylor, Big C?
Billings is one of the 3 strongest men in the entire draft, Charlton. he's a world-class shot putter at Baylor also.
Yeah.
So he's really going to help secure the middle of the Green Bay Packers defensive line. Now, B.J. Rogers talking about retiring this season, but you still have Julius Peppers, you know, who can still play. You got Clay Matthews on the other side. So Billings will really help secure the middle of that offensive lineman. And so when you bench 700 pounds, Charlton, or close to it, you can stop a lot of things.
Stop a lot of things.
You're not drinking Bud Light, trust me.
That's true. The Chiefs, number 28, William Jackson III, cornerback out of Houston. Very good in pass coverage. What do you think of him helping the Chiefs, Big C?
Well, they need a little help on the secondary. You know, Eric Berry came back last year. It was a miraculous recovery from cancer, Charlton.
Yeah.
So securing up the secondary, we saw the Chiefs last year go on that 11-game run. But when they got to the playoffs, that's where they had some problems in the secondary. So they got to secure it up just a little bit more. Alex Smith is a steady quarterback. The running game should be healthy. Once Charles comes back this year, the receivers finally stepped up. They caught some touchdown passes last year. So having some help in the secondary should help the Chiefs.
Last three choices, Big C. Number 29, the Arizona Cardinals. They're looking at quarterback Paxton Lynch out of Memphis. He's going to back up Carson Palmer. A great chance to learn. What do you think of him going to back up Carson Palmer, Big C?
Well, Charlton, how long have they been writing off Carson Palmer?
Many years.
Year after year. Everybody's talking about writing off Carson Palmer. They made the trade last year with the Eagles for the kid that Barkley that played at USC.
Yeah.
They had a couple other quarterbacks, Stanton, you know, that they had drafted. But Carson Palmer keeps throwing. So, I mean, it's a wasted draft pick. I see the Cardinals taking a quarterback in the first round. I mean, even a couple of years ago, they brought the kid in Cobb out of Philadelphia, who was there for less than a cup of coffee.
Okay.
But, you know, they have other needs other than a backup quarterback ahead because the receiving core is solid. I think another running back or maybe even another offensive lineman would really help them. You never go wrong drafting another cornerback, though, Charles.
The last two picks, Big C, we have the Carolina Panthers, Emmanuel Agbach, defensive end, Oklahoma State. You know they got rid of Josh Norman. What do you think of him helping out on the defensive side of the ball, Big C?
Well, you know, if you can get pressure on the opposing quarterback, Charlton, it makes it a little easier on your defensive secondary. I mean, Norman's going to be a tremendous loss, but that's something that they'll be able to pencil in. They'll get a cornerback in the second or third round.
Yeah.
You know, you have some guys on the roster. But defensive linemen are at a premium. And we look at this draft, Charlton, when you look at the number of offensive linemen and defensive linemen that will go in the first round, it can easily be 10 to 12. Go this tonight and the rest of the weekend in the first round, Charlton.
Last pick, Denver Broncos picking the 31st pick. Jason Spriggs, offensive tackle out of Indiana. What are your thoughts on them? They have to find what quarterback he's going to be protecting, Big C, with John Elway.
Well, you know, you take a player out of Indiana and bring him to Denver. Now, that fits in two ways, okay? When you look at the climate, Charlton, where he's played in the Big Ten, he's played in a cold environment in Indiana. So being an outside player in Denver late in the season will benefit him. And they talked about letting Ryan Clady go possibly to the Jets to pick up for the Brickashaw Ferguson, who's retired. So they're going to have a need for an offensive lineman. And the quarterback is going to be the major issue in Denver. Who's going to play quarterback? You lost your star running back to the Miami Dolphins in free agency. So there's a lot of questions that have to be asked in Denver. So whoever the Broncos pick will be a solid pick for that organization because they've been decimated through free agency.
Well, speaking of free agency, Big C, I like to always tell you that I love talking to you, getting your insight on the games and the players that make up the NFL. And also, we cover all the sports, but today is NFL Draft Day. Unfortunately, we're out of time, but fortunately, we'll be back tomorrow with more. We'll be back with more tomorrow on Charlton and Big C Sports. But I just want to tell you, I do appreciate the knowledge that you're bringing to the game. But you can listen to us every Monday through Friday at 5 o'clock p.m. Pacific Standard Time worldwide on Charlton and Big C Sports. We thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope you have a super fantastic day.